Hey everyone, it is Tanya. Welcome back to the channel, or welcome if you are new here. Today I'm back with another speed build, and we're actually going to be building a Renaissance Fair in The Sims 4. So a little bit of a unique and imaginative build, but it is the time of year where there are Renaissance fairs popping up everywhere, and I went to one this year and immediately was like, I want to build something like this in The Sims. So that's what we're going to be doing here today, and you might recognize the build if you follow me over on Twitch, as I did stream the entire process of creating this. And if you'd like to be part of the process in the future, I do stream 3 to 4 times a week over on twitch.tv/Gryphi, and that will be linked in the description down below as well. And also, if you want to download this build for yourself, it is available right now on the Sims 4 gallery. You can find it under my EA ID, which is Gryphi, Gryphi. You could also find it under the hashtag Gryphi, and that's also in the description. And if you're thinking about picking up the Adventure Awaits expansion pack, it would mean the world to me if you would consider using my creator code Gryphi at checkout. It's a great way to support me as a creator, and it doesn't cost anything extra. You just enter it at checkout and I'll receive a small commission on your purchase price. So thank you for considering, and thanks to EA for sponsoring this portion of the video. I started by placing down a bunch of random items that I thought I was going to use, and then I started creating this sort of castle structure in the front, which is acting as the gate that you go through to enter into the Renaissance Fair. It is just like a passway in the middle, and then off to each side I have other rooms. One of them ends up being a bathroom for your Sims to use, and the other ends up being kind of like a styling studio. Think Bippity Boppity Boutique from Disney World, but for adults at a Renaissance fair. So that's what this building ends up being. And when you enter in, there is going to be so many different activities to do. I made a huge list of things I wanted to include, and I tried to keep it mostly to things that would make sense and be functional in the game. And there are so many vendors here, more than you can actually hire, but I liked how it looked. So you could pick and choose which ones you decide to hire on this lot. And I set it up as a small business, but you could probably set this as a bunch of different options to make it work the best for you, whatever you'd like. It could also be a custom venue, like what we have with the new pack. That's an option. I might play around with that a little bit more before I upload it to the gallery, and I'll decide which one makes the most sense. But I did playtest this as a small business to make sure everything functioned, and for the most part it does. There's a couple of things that are a little bit finicky, or only part of it works, but I will explain that as we get to them. Anyway, right now I am adding flags to the top of these little towers, and I'm going to be adding flags on the front and back of the building as well, and so many signs, and I just have a lot of fun with all of these items that I don't typically get to use. They just were perfect for this build, like this throne in the front that is for the royalty to sit in. There tends to be like some sort of crowning ceremony for a king and queen at a lot of Renaissance Fair, so I thought just having some sort of throne when you first enter would be kind of fun. It also just makes the entrance feel more formal. So you're entering through that beautiful gate, and then there's something directly in front, and then you can go to the right or the left for a variety of different activities. I also did decide to start putting down some terrain paint, but it's not going to stay. So I show a little bit of the process, but it's all of a sudden going to disappear as it's not exactly how I have this space work. It was sort of just a rough draft, and it evolved as I started placing down more items. I was just trying to sketch out what I was thinking and explain it to the chat, since I did stream this over on Twitch. But this item right here is something that I was so happy that I found. It, as well as the throne and a few other items that I placed down on this lot, are set pieces from Get Famous for some of the scenes you can perform as an actor. And I just loved the vibe of it, so I kind of nestled it between a couple of buildings here. And it ends up being a space that later on I decorate as an area for an artist who is doing live paintings and selling a bunch of their artwork. It's just like a really cute area, and I'm excited for you to see that. And then over here, I end up putting a couple of these archways, and I'm going to be placing down some of the cafeteria items from, I think, high school years in there. So it's sort of like a food hall for them to grab items from that are more generic. But I do have so many vendors that are food trucks and stuff all over this lot as well. And I ended up using this gorgeous awning from High School Years Debug to be a seating area outside of that food hall. And then I lined the area with a bunch of these picnic benches that I just love. They're actually from Journey to Batu, which is kind of unfortunate, but they're one of my favorite ones in the game. I just love how there are 4 individual seats, and that the wood on the tables and the seats is not perfectly straight. They just feel exactly the right vibe for this particular build, so I of course had to use those. And I think this is where I'm going to be grabbing the cafeteria items to place in here. Yeah, I think we have a couple of these. I think there's also one that comes with Discovery University, but I did place down the high school years ones. And then I just grabbed a couple of these menus. They're chalkboard menus. I want to say one of them is from Dine Out and the other ones might be Get Together. And then, of course, just placing some windows and stuff on the sides of these buildings. Some of them I put some of these trellises with greenery on them, and then I have windows on others because I was trying to decide which buildings I wanted you to be able to enter and have stuff in versus ones that were more decorative. So the building behind the throne, that one is just decorative, but a lot of the other ones I made sure you could enter in some capacity. Some of it ends up being blocked off because I had pieces of sets clipping into it, but for the most part, I wanted that to be functional. Anyway, over on the left side of the build, when you first enter, I guess when you enter, it would be on your left, but when I'm building it, it's the opposite. Anyway, over there is where I'm going to be putting a lot of these vendor stalls where I have lots of food and like pre-made vendors. And then over on the other side of the build, there's going to be a different space where I put these blue tents that I started putting over here. And I make little shops with that, like a place to buy crystals. There's also tarot reading. I have a place to buy a variety of beers or ales. Maybe mead. I also have a flower shop, kind of a miscellaneous home decor shop, and a few others. So we'll see those a little bit later on, but on this side is where all of the food is, or most of the food. Basically, I wanted to make sure a majority of this fair was vendors because that is what my experience has been, and there tends to be some really cool places to get food and to buy items, and I definitely did a little bit of shopping when I went to the Renaissance Fair recently. I got a beautiful print of a crow from a local artist. I also got like a very cute mini frame, like an ornate frame that had similar artwork in it, and a couple of miniatures as well from a booth that made like miniatures out of metal. So I got some good things, and I wanted to make sure there were some cool booths for your Sims to go shopping at as well. Technically, I didn't place down any of the pedestals and stuff that would make shopping functional, but that would be a really easy thing to do if you wanted your Sims to actually be able to shop there. You could go ahead and just place some of the items I placed on the like shoppable pedestals, and that should work just fine. It's just there's so many different things on this lot that I was more so making sure I placed down all of the different activities that were more important and being able to actually access food and walk around, and there's a place for archery and all of that, so you can do all of these activities, and then you can kind of pick and choose which other ones you think are more important for what you want to be functional versus just sort of set dressing. Because you can buy all of those items regularly in the game anyway, so having the option to actually purchase them from the Ren Fair, I didn't think was as important, so I just didn't prioritize that. But anyway, over here in the front, I have that broken down pirate ship, and I actually end up merging a new modular playground into it, which I think looks so cool. So it's kind of like the kids get to play on the pirate ship, but it's not like the kids' pirate ship from base game. It looks a lot cooler. So you'll see that a little bit later. And then this back corner is where I have our archery, which I'm so excited about to still have this in the game. When I first found out about Adventure Awaits many months ago, since I worked on the pack, I was so excited because archery is something that is very near and dear to my heart. I like it so much. So there ends up being a space for your Sims to do that. And then I am starting to lay out where some of these shops are going to go with these little blue tents, which are a item that comes in Show Live Edit Objects from the High School Years expansion pack, which is the other pack that I worked on. I can't believe I've worked on 2 expansion packs now. I've built 6 lots that are officially in the game, and that kind of blows my mind. I can't believe The Sims ever wanted to work with me, let alone twice. And that's all thanks to you all, so thank you so much for supporting the channel and supporting me so that I can get cool opportunities like that. It really means so much. Anyway, before I start crying, let's go ahead and talk about the build a little bit more. I am placing down some fairy lights to separate the area where I'm going to be having the modular playground from the shopping space, and I'm starting to place down some of the items. So this is going to be the crystal shop. I have the gemology table, and then I placed down this really pretty table also from the Crystal Creations pack to put a bunch of the different wares on. And then we're actually jumping to the back of the build to start working on a performance stage, because there tends to be quite a lot of cool performances at Renaissance fairs. And instead of putting a bunch of stages around, because I didn't think that would be as helpful for the Sims, even though it's kind of realistic to what you might see at a Ren fair, I decided to just put one big stage and I decorated it with a bunch of different things. So I'm just trying to figure out exactly how I want this to work now. And I ended up actually using a spandrel with some of these columns to get that little bit of decoration in the corner. And that spandrel and column is actually from Adventure Awaits. And then I grabbed a sign to put up top, which I think is from the Cozy Bistro kit. But I imagine all sorts of performances are going to be going on this stage. So I ended up putting a few different items up there to kind of tell that story. But I also put up the busking station from City Living, so your Sims could actually go up there and perform and get tips. I thought that that would be a fun idea, and this is where I'm picking out some decor for the background, which changes a few times, but I knew I wanted to have some curtains and potentially the shield or the crest in the middle, and I also played around with having the swords and shields as well. And then for seating, I ended up using a bunch of these benches from Outdoor Retreat that are just pieces of a log. I thought that they looked really cool, and I'm pretty sure that was a chat suggestion, and I loved that. I felt like it fit the theme very nicely, and I also ended up adding some lighting up here and another staircase. And I think actually adding the lighting made me realize that it looked a little bit too busy behind the stage, and that should be why I went ahead and got rid of a couple of the things that were up there, because it just feels a little cluttered right now. But before I do that, I am adding these railings up here. They would technically block your view a little bit, but I really liked how they looked. They are one of the set pieces as well from Get Famous, so is the tent and the fire, which don't stay up on the stage, but they are items that I played around with the idea of having them up here. I also added a guitar and a violin. There's a cannon and a steering wheel for a ship. I also grabbed this piece that kind of, I think is for a ship to put stairs down to go below board. So I placed that in the back and then put some decor there. And you can see I just kind of rearranged some items and have that busking station in the middle, so you can do some performing. And I think at this point I have already gotten rid of the swords and shields. Yes, I did, because the back wall was just so cluttered. I didn't like it, so I'm glad that I changed that. And then over here is going to be where I fence off an area for animals. I end up having one of these little houses instead of two. I was thinking there could be one horse or llama, and then I put a space for, or not horse, one cow or llama, and then I put a space for a horse as well. And I believe I placed down some mini goats on this lot, so that's kind of cute. There's also an area for your horses to do some tricks, so I have the barrels out. And I'm grabbing just lots of items from Horse Ranch that I think I might be able to use either for the animals or for one of the shops. So I'm just grabbing all of those items and kind of throwing them around the lot. This whole build is very jumpy, where as I get an idea or find an item, I go to that section to continue working on it. So apologies if it's a little frustrating to watch. It's just kind of how this build came together. I was very all over the place, coming up with ideas and getting really excited about it. This was such a fun one to create, so I do hope you enjoy it. But this is our little shop where you can get some wine or beer or mead, whatever you would like to get here. I have mostly wine being shown here, and I have the little station from Horse Ranch where you can actually make your own, which I thought was pretty cool. And I will be placing a crow down in that same bar because I end up finding a sign that is, I think, from Life and Death that has a crow and some sort of drink. And so I thought it was a cute idea to have that as maybe the logo for the company, and they have a pet crow that's always there with them. Crows are so smart, and I love the idea of maybe them being part of the business. And I also grabbed signs for some of the other little shops in this area. Oh, and this little tent from Life and Death was perfect to put next to the area where I put the seance table. I think it is so pretty. And it's just an item I don't get to use that often. So I placed it down in this purple swatch here, and then I'm just moving some of the signs around and some of the other little shops as I wanted to fit this between a couple of the tents. And I think this is where I'm going to realize there's a sign that has a crow holding a cherry. Yeah, putting it into like a martini glass. I thought it was perfect for this shop, and I love it so much. And there's the little crow I placed down. He's so cute. And I've done this in a lot of recent videos lately, and I think it's really fun. So if you are still watching at this point and you are listening to the voiceover, can you comment that a crow stole the straw out of your drink at the Ren Fair you just went to? Then I will know that you were listening at this point. And I just always think it's funny when you see all of the comments like that, and the comments are confused if they haven't read till this point or watched till this point. So just a little bit of fun. Anyway, I am grabbing a couple of other stalls to put over here. So I have I think both of the ones I placed down are from Enchanted by Nature. So there's a plant shop, I think, and then the other one is gnomes. So I thought that those were pretty cute. And then here in the animal area, I got this debug little shed. It was a great way to anchor some of the items that I wanted to place down for them to eat. So I have the food and the water and just some decorative items as well. And then out front, I am working on some more landscaping and adding another sign to the entrance. I made the front of this build very symmetrical, which is something I don't do very often because it's not my preference in what buildings look like. But I felt like it worked really nicely here. And then I also grabbed a couple of these roof decorations from Enchanted by Nature because that's the ones that matched the roofing I used because that's also from that pack. And I also placed down some planters out front, which I'm going to be filling with a variety of bushes. Or I guess not a variety. I try a few different things, but there's one bush in particular that I end up keeping. And I think it looks so nice. And I also used some flooring to be the pathway leading you into the Renaissance Fair. And I'm going to be changing that to a different one. But I did start with the stone from Adventure Awaits, but I'm pretty sure the one I ended up keeping in the end is actually a stone from Jungle Adventure. It was more worn and it just was perfect. I was very excited about it. Anyway, this is that section that I had mentioned before that I turned into a space for an artist who is doing live portraits and selling some of their art as well. So I put down a easel as well as a woodworking table. And then there's this bench that's part of the set already. So I just put a piece of fabric behind it. So maybe that could be where you sit down to get maybe a caricature. I can never pronounce that word, or some sort of self-portrait done. And then here are some of the pieces of art that they have for sale. I just grabbed some off the gallery. They were like already painted things that your Sims can just do in gameplay. So I put those up on these boards, which are from City Living. So you can actually purchase some of the art from this area. And then just a couple more decor items that I placed down that are technically from the Artist Studio kit. And this beautiful banner leading you into that space. I used a lot of those from Life and Death. And then I put down the same flooring in this space and connected it with the rest. And I'm going to be using that to kind of make pathways all around this build. Not everywhere, just the spaces that I feel are things that are always going to be there. Like the stage is pretty set in stone, the buildings are as well, but all of the areas with the little stands and vendors, I had that as more of a dirt pathway because I thought that that was a little bit more realistic and I wanted this lot to be lots of dirt. Because when you're walking around a Renaissance fair, you're going to get covered in dust and sand and dirt and mud, and I wanted that to be very present. So you'll see me do that a little bit later. Right now, everything's very green because I'm still sketching it out, but I wanted some defined pathways, and then there'll be some dirtier ones a little bit later on. Anyway, this is that space that I have for you to sit down and eat right outside of the food hall, and I just am grabbing some more of these little planters to fill with the same bushes that I put at the entrance. These end up lining a few different places inside the fair, as I think it's nice to have some structured landscaping. I also have some stuff that's just like overgrowing because it's just a field. And normally some of the stuff is not here. It's set up specifically for the fair. So you'll see that as well. There ends up being all sorts of grass and mushrooms and flowers. And I just had a blast with the landscaping on this lot. I always like landscaping. And this is a 64 by 64 lot. So it was quite a task to decorate the entire thing. And speaking of which, I'm working on another 64 by 64 lot. I don't know what has gotten into me with these large lots lately, but I think it's the new pack. I just have so many ideas. This was very much inspired by the fact that I went to a Ren Fair recently, but also the fact that we have archery in the game now, and it makes me think of Ren Fairs. So yeah, just so many ideas going on, and I have a couple of 64 by 64 lots. So I hope you will enjoy them. Anyway, I am now moving some of the items around to fit around where I put these pathways down. Getting some more trees. I moved a little like coffee stand, which is on the other side, not near the food. I just thought it made more sense to have just that one alone. So maybe while you're doing the shopping, you can grab a quick coffee. And then I am adding some more of these very low trees. These ones are from Get Together. I used a lot of Get Together here. I am building in Windenburg, so that makes sense. It matches the environment quite well. And then I painted the entire lots with dirt. We're doing that as a starting point, and then I erased some of it to let some green come through, and I put down lots of rock, and I just tried to make it feel like what my experience of a Ren Fair was, and make it feel a little bit messy. So we're going through and going to be doing a lot of terrain painting, and this made me very nervous because it's such a big lot, and there's so much detail I wanted to add, and there's been a bug in the game for so long where it just deletes your terrain paint, so I was very nervous about this, but luckily it was fine. However, just in case, I did save it to my library more times than I'd like to mention. And yeah, just continuing getting some dirt in these little pathways by where all the food is. But I put a lot of grass here in the front by the throne because, of course, we will have bright green grass for where the royalty will sit. So I wanted to make sure that was there. It's a little bit dirty, but compared to the rest of the lot, it is bright green. And then I also grabbed this little fountain. I guess it's a big fountain. It is from one of our earlier packs. I think it's romantic garden stuff. Your Sims can sit on the side or throw coins in. I just thought it was a nice place for them to sit and have a different activity to do. And that is also near where there are some more bathrooms. And I'm going to be placing down a photo booth as well, which I believe is an item that came with high school years. So your Sims can go in there and take some photos. I thought that was just a fun idea. And you can see this is right next to where all of the food areas are as well. And then this is our little pirate ship where I put in the modular playground. And this is functional in the ways that I felt like it needed to be, but it's not functional in that your Sims can't climb to this top platform and play with the toys up there, but they can climb up the ladder and slide down the slide. And I was happy enough with that because I really liked how it looked and I just wanted them to be able to use the slide. But if you did want them to use more of it, you're going to have to move it over so it's not colliding with the ship. But I was happy enough with it just having the slide functional. So that is all I wanted to mention on that. But here I am finding a couple more items from high school years that I thought would be fun. There's the photo booth I had mentioned. And then there's this like sign that has information about the pier technically in high school years. But I ended up actually just using it for the Ren Fair. And these beautiful purple flowers I decided to place absolutely everywhere for a pop of color. I really like those. And then I'm just readjusting one of the shops or a couple of the shops to add a couple of more items. I got more things from Crystal Creations in our crystal shop. And then I got the thrifting counter in the clothing shop and a rug for Crystal Creations, or not Crystal Creations, for the seance booth. I got a rug from the paranormal stuff pack. There's too much content for this game that it's really hard to keep track of it at this point. I'm trying my best and I think I'm doing an okay job, but there's some things I forget. Anyway, this is the booth that I had mentioned that's kind of like miscellaneous home decor. So I have a stand of furniture. There's this really beautiful rocking chair. There's even a gnome and a jack-o'-lantern. And then over here, I scaled up this magical looking tree. I can't remember the name of it right now, but it came with Enchanted by Nature. So I put that here by some of the stands. And then I am getting some flowers over by the shopping area. And I should be grabbing, I think, 1 or 2 more booths to put over there as well. But first, I am fencing in the little spot for your horses to sleep. And then I grabbed a ton of this grass from the debug section of Cottage Living to place all around this lot to make things look a little bit more overgrown. And I also grabbed some of the bales of hay as well. These ones are just decorative that I'm placing down now, but I am going to place down some that are chairs that also came with Cottage Living around so your Sims can actually take a seat on some of the hay. I thought that was kind of fun. So just moving all of that around and getting some signage for the area where you can go and watch performances and some more decor items as well. There is a bike. I also grabbed a wheelbarrow and then I am getting some flowers in these planters. And then these are also stools, these little mushrooms. I thought that they would be cute for a photo opportunity and then placing around the bales of hay your Sims can sit on. Absolutely everywhere, honestly. They're just kind of scattered around the space. I thought that they were kind of fun. And I also wanted to add some activities for your horses. So there is a ball in there and then also some of those mini goats. So you can have some more animals running around. And then in this area, I thought I was going to have another little food hall or like inside shop. But I actually ended up grabbing some of these stalls from Realm of Magic and putting them inside the building. So you can go and buy some of those magical wares that you would normally have to travel to the magic realm to get. And then finally, we are working on this little styling area that I compared to the Bippity Boppity Boutique earlier. So we have a bunch of costumes on either side. And then I have the little stands your Sims can stand on to plan out their outfits and the hairstylist section as well. And then through the curtain at the end, I have a bunch of mirrors so you can go in here and look at yourself from all of the angles. So you could plan out your Ren Fair outfit if you showed up without going ahead and planning it ahead. I liked the story that maybe this was a place you could purchase things and be styled kind of like the Bippity Boppity Boutique, but for gameplay, it's just nice to have a spot where your Sims can actually change their outfit if they showed up and didn't do that ahead, or you just forgot to, or for some reason they didn't change into it, or something didn't save. I thought it was a nice way to incorporate that space. And then I just decorated the bathrooms as well. And then we're just finishing up with some more landscaping. I got some more of these bushes. And I last minute added some of these machines from Strangerville for your Sims to like fight. And also the stand that normally Irwin is at that has all sorts of oddities that felt like a very good idea for this space. And then over here, I also decided to add some more of these string lights that I had over on the other side of the build. I just think they're really pretty. I love the red color. They are very striking in the middle of the night. And you can kind of see that now as I'm placing down some more lights all over the property to light it up at the evening time. But that is pretty much it for this build. I really hope you enjoyed it. If you did, make sure you give this video a big thumbs up. You can also subscribe to the channel if you'd like to see more and click that bell to be notified when I upload. And a massive thank you to my YouTube members for your continued support. If you'd like to become a member yourself, you can click the join button below the video or the link in the description. Please enjoy the screenshots and I will see you all in the next one. Bye everyone.